On this edition of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast, repping their cities, Calgary and Edmonton baseball fans are rocking throwback threads thanks to Sea of Dead and Ross Flats Apparel. Welcome to episode 95 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. It's been tough not being able to talk about live baseball over the last couple of months, and watching the MLB situation unfold has been frustrating to say the very least. However, it has provided an opportunity for us to go back into the history books and talk about the days of affiliated baseball in Alberta. For some fans, they've taken it a step further by seeking out caps and shirts of their favorite teams of yesteryear. For this episode, we thought we'd get the inside scoop behind a couple of brands that have emerged out of the ashes of the Calgary Cannons and Edmonton Trappers. We'll start things off with Sea of Dead founders John Anderson and Garrett Crump. What started as a way to remember the likes of Danny Tartabull, Edgar Martinez, and Brett Boone has turned into something much more in Calgary, leading to plenty of smiles and memories of days gone by. Gents, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is my first podcast I've been on, so pretty exciting day.
Take us back in time and give us a little bit of the backstory behind Sea of Dead.
So Garrett and I have been friends since middle school, and we've kind of kept in touch over the years. And really what happened is we just kind of shared through our conversations and probably a few beers, our interest in baseball and then our memories of the Cannons and whatnot. So we got to basically looking online for Cannons memorabilia and found it was really hard to find. So we kind of figured it out and we reached out to a few people, and obviously we saw Ross Flats up in Edmonton and what they were doing, and they really laid the groundwork for us and kind of provided a blueprint for us for how to kind of begin by making our own stuff if we couldn't find any online.
Was it a pretty simple process in the early going to kind of get things going, get the ideas flowing, or did it take a little bit of work?
Well, Garrett can speak to that. Garrett is really our kind of logistics and numbers guy. But no, it wasn't simple in the beginning. It was a lot of trial and error, and we had to kind of find the right fit to basically produce high quality stuff cost efficiently. That was probably our biggest challenge, wouldn't you say, Garrett?
Oh, yeah. And I think just kind of being a little naive at first, where we thought, we'll just get some logos, we'll throw it on some stuff and then start selling it. And then we start going down the rabbit hole a bit further and understanding that there's different quality in terms of shirts. And, we're going to have to figure out pricing, and we're actually going to have to figure out how, we deliver this stuff to people who buy it. So, yeah, it turned into a little more complicated than we thought, but it was just so much fun to keep working on it and growing it and figuring out these problems as they kind of started coming up.
Were you surprised at all by the uptake? I mean, there was a lot of excitement around reinvigorating not only the Cannons brand, but some of the other brands that you've been able to bring back from the dead.
I would say we weren't necessarily surprised because Garrett and I have very diehard memories of it, and if it was something we were interested in. So if anything, actually, it took a little bit longer to kind of get our name out than we thought it would. AB Dugout Stories, of course, has been very supportive and a wonderful platform for us in the beginning. So we're a year into it now, and we're kind of feeling like now people just sort of know who we are. But we really we had to work at it for a while to make sure people knew, and just to get that exposure. It took a little bit longer, actually, to be perfectly honest, than we kind of expected.
We knew that the fans were out there, and we understood that people had, these great memories of going to the park and enjoying the baseball and everything else. But it was just, as John said, a little tougher to kind of get that message out there and reach those people that wanted to buy the merchandise.
Speaking of memories, I'd love for both of you guys to give some of your favorites from Foothill Stadium or any other places that you might have seen some baseball here in this province.
Well, mine has been told quite a few times. I used to go to games regularly. My grandparents were season ticket holders to the Cannons throughout the early 90s. But my favorite memory is I actually got to be a part of their season promotion. So in 1992, my dad was taking me to batting practice, and they decided to take my photo with a player. And then the following year, my mom was in a Turbo gas station, and they had all the Cannons brochures and marketing packages for the year, posters and whatnot, and it was me sitting on this player's lap. And Mark Steven actually told me who the player was years ago, and unfortunately, it wasn't A-Rod or anybody that went on to greatness. But that's my favorite memory of spending time down at the stadium.
Yeah, I guess for me, one that always just kind of pops out is I have an Uncle Larry, who's just, the biggest baseball fan in our family, and used to take myself, my brother, and our cousins to the games all the time. And, at some of them, we used to be able to talk to some of the employees, and if we returned the balls from the foul balls, they would pay us a quarter. So you'd have like 6 to 10 of these kids just ripping around, fighting over these loose foul balls, just to return them to try and save up a couple of quarters, and then, of course, go blow it on pop and hot dogs and never walk away from the stadium with a cent. But, I mean, just I think overall for me, it was such a great family experience, and it really brought a lot of great memories of my uncle and cousins for sure.
Do you guys have any favorite players that suited up in Cannons jerseys over the years?
I mean, we get asked that a lot, hey, Gert. And
oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously, the easy answer is I would probably go with Boone. But I don't feel comfortable picking a favorite player, because for me, the Cannons was more about a memory and an experience. And I mean, any Cannon that went on to play in the majors, whether they made an impact or not, was, kind of your guy, right? Mm-hmm. So it's too tough. I don't know. That's just me, but yeah.
Yeah, for me it was kind of tough because, I was pretty young going to the game, so the individual players and knowing the names and all that wasn't really my thing. But just being able to enjoy the sport, and it kind of drove me to want to actually play baseball and get involved in it personally. So I think that was more what I took out of it in remembering for sure.
And I know that this is a baseball podcast, but at the same time, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the other brands you've been able to bring back from the dead, so to speak. I mean, the Rads are back and the 88s are back. I mean, these are brands that a lot of people didn't even know existed at the time. So what's it been like being able to provide some other sports along the ride as well?
Well, Cannons for sure is our bread and butter, right? Mm-hmm. So that's definitely where we started. But we knew early on, when we started researching what it was going to be like to go down this rabbit hole, we thought it would be really unique to be able to provide sort of a platform where you could kind of really show and relive all these other memories. So yeah, now we have the 88s, we have Boomers stuff, we have Rad stuff, Cecil Hotel, we have a Lloyd's roller rink shirt coming out. It's been a really unique experience and fun to hear everybody's stories, but for sure, Cannons is our bread and butter. We almost feel like Cannons is what gets people to our door, and then once they're in, they can look at everything else.
Yeah, I think, the initial order is always like the blue and red Cannon snapback, right, John? And then from there, they're like, oh, these guys actually make some quality stuff. Let me go cruise their other items, and then we get some multi-item orders. But yeah, I mean, for me, like, even, learning about the Boomers and was somewhat aware of the 88s, but not nearly to the point that I am now. Has been such an awesome journey, just understanding the history of various sports in Calgary.
I would say it's probably worth noting, and I do understand this is a baseball podcast, but the 88s is probably our second most vocal support group. I would say those that remember the 88s seem to really remember it. Like I said, Cannons is probably our primary target audience, but the 88s supporters and fans and those that remember it seem to really remember it, and they're constantly asking for more.
What's it like having those conversations with fans who want to wax a little nostalgic, or even the younger fans who may have been kind of in your boat? They were just kids when the Cannons were through, and all of a sudden it's bringing up all these memories. It's got to be pretty special.
Oh, it's been so cool, to be honest with you. I mean, even somebody like Pat Steinberg has been very vocal with us, and we're super appreciative for his support. And he's been like very vocal about his memories of working at the Cannons and whatnot. So it's been a lot of fun, to be honest with you. Every time we post somebody, we always connect with somebody who says, oh, I worked with the Cannons and the Parker Group for whatever years in the 90s, and I was a ball boy, or I worked at concessions and whatnot. So it's been really unique, and it's been a lot of fun to kind of get to know these people through their stories and their memories.
Yeah, I love the like the old treasures that they start pulling out, like the old programs, or the old shirts or jackets, or anything, that old memorabilia that they have, and posting it up on their socials. And it's really awesome to just see that interaction, where it's stuff they probably haven't thought about for who knows how many years, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I think I've got some interesting stories to tell about those, the Cannons and how I was involved.
That's got to be kind of an interesting side note in all of this. Is you mentioned rabbit holes earlier on. I'd imagine by seeing some of the stories, that probably leads you down, hey, I wonder if we could do pins or whatever the case may be down the road as well.
Yeah, totally. We have those conversations all the time. Pins, stickers. What else can we kind of do right now? It's basically pretty expensive to operate something like this, and with integrity and quality. So right now we kind of have to focus on t-shirts with some hats, but we're always looking. I should really mention that we are a 3-man band. We met our designer, his name is Ryan, through Twitter, actually, diehard Cannons fan, and he's about 10 years older than us, so he's really sort of our memory guy. But he's been outstanding to work with and has been a huge help throughout this process. He handles all the designs and whatnot for us, and he really makes sure the stuff is on point. And then when we're looking at samples and mock-ups of future products, he's 100% the guy responsible for that. So he's always working hard.
Oh, yeah. The first time we were trying to get an order in, and the manufacturer asked us for vector images, and John and I just kind of stared at each other like, what? What? You mean like a JPEG?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Final question for you guys. Where do you see this going? Where would you love to see this go?
Well, I mean, I think you'd be crazy if you didn't say you'd love to see it go where you could almost have like a storefront shop, and every day Garrett and I clock in and, deal with customers on a daily basis in the harder hustle and bustle of Calgary. But as of right now, it's a bit of a pet project and something that we do really out of a labor of love. So we're just kind of taking slow steps. We're a year into this now, and we're just trying to get more products and be able to sort of reach a larger audience. But I would say, yeah, the end goal, like, it would be a dream to have your own See a Dead shop that somebody could walk into and browse and peruse and tell their friends to head down.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, John and I have done a couple like pop-ups initially in the early days, and being able to interact one-on-one with the fans in person and just chat. So having that storefront would be awesome to do that on a more regular basis. But yeah, just, step by step, I think growing and understanding sort of which areas are kind of selling the best and which sports may be designed so far, and hopefully keep tracking to get to that point.
There are some really great things to be seen at seaofdead.ca. Gents, thanks again for joining us here on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
We head up to the provincial capital now to check in with Reed Clark. The man behind Ross Flats Apparel didn't actually start with Trappers gear to remember players like Devon White, Wally Joyner, and Jason Giambi. He went way back in time to the 1909 Edmonton Greys and has expanded to much more in what was originally a project for his post-secondary education. Reed, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Great, thanks for having me.
Give us a little bit of a history lesson on the origins of Ross Flats.
Yeah, how it all started was I was actually doing my MBA, and I was doing that online while I was still working. And one of the classes I took was an entrepreneurial class, and the assignment was, something's passionate to you, come up with an idea, and then build the business plan for that, and kind of see it all the way through, and then kind of look at it at the end and say, is this something you should move forward with or not? So really, I've always been into history and vintage sports for as long as I can remember. I saw there's a few people in the U.S. that was doing, something there to kind of bring back heritage, whether it's Ebbets Field flannels or it's homage. So I kind of thought, well, no one's really doing that in Canada, especially Western Canada, and nobody really in Edmonton is in Alberta. So I kind of looked at, well, maybe, there's a market here. So came up with concept to really just, look at some of these vintage logos and teams, and then kind of just really start looking at the history books and the archives and do some digging online. And then I found out that, they've been playing baseball in Edmonton, the same area, for over 120 years now. And then I kind of researched that, and everyone used to call like Rosedale, where it is now, where the TELUS ballpark is today, is actually was known as like Ross Flats. It's kind of a flatland area, so everyone called it that, and there's big exhibition sites. I think the Queen came one time, and they hosted games, whether it's football or hockey or baseball, everything down there. So I'm like, yeah, that's a really cool name. So let's kind of run with that, and then let's bring back some of these early teams from the 1900s, the Edmonton Greys, look at the Dodgers, and try to kind of recreate those logos and just make some apparel on shirts and see what people think about that. So that was how the idea really came about, and really just got the logos done as close as possible as it could from some of the images I was able to find in the archives. Have some designers who help me out with and get a site going and throw it on there, and then try to push it a little bit on social media and go from there. So that's how it started, was really to bring back a whole bunch of sports history and show it to people. And then from there, it just kind of evolved and grew to other teams and got later and later.
Where did the interest in the history aspect come from?
I don't know. I've always been into history, whether it's sports or it's anything. I'm really a believer in, if you don't know your history, you don't know where you've come from and where you're going, because it obviously repeats itself. So I was always, that kind of nostalgic. I'm a big time collector. I keep, every ticket I've been to for every hockey game, concert, event, even scrapbook them. Do that because I think it's really cool, and I want to be able to show, my kids, and they keep it to show their kids. So there's always kind of that going on for me. And even now, I love collecting defunct team stuff. I'm on a big Vancouver Grizzlies hunt right now, finding things. So I've been tracking eBay and Kijiji big on that. And, I love finding the old champion stuff and jerseys that were cool when I was growing up, and now they've gone to a whole new level now. So I don't know where it came from, but I've definitely always kind of had it.
And obviously Edmonton's got quite the rich baseball history, as you alluded to, as you've gone about your historical lookings through your MBA and that kind of thing. Did anything really take you by surprise as you went scouring the archives?
One, that they've been playing in the same area for that many years, how many teams there have been, and how popular baseball was here, really across all of Western Canada and maybe across the entire country in the early 1900s. So it's always been a big part of the game. And when you even see some of these old pictures of stadiums and the crowd's packed and everyone's into it. So, I know everyone thinks hockey's the only sport here, and it's Oilers and Flames, and that's all it is. But there's been passionate fans for baseball for a long time here, and it's a big part of this part of the world, and growing up and always has been, and people are into it. And I think now they still are. They're just looking for a reason to get back involved.
Were you a baseball fan as well growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big sports fan across the board. But yeah, I've always been a big baseball fan. I'm trying to do my tours of all the MLB ballparks. So I've got my little map up, and I've got 13 down, which is pretty good. And hopefully I'll be able to bang out a few more when baseball comes back.
A lot of the memories, especially, from what we've started out with Dugout Stories, was it kind of started as let's throw it back to the affiliated days. But how much of your interest was sort of built off of, the days of the PCL, the Trappers, those kinds of memories and those kinds of days?
Yeah, for me, I mean, that's what I remember is going to old John Ducey Ballpark in Edmonton with my dad, going to a Trappers game, having a Ducey dog. Like that takes me way back. So that's where a lot of these came from, is just, and kind of just how awesome, simplistic it is to go to a baseball game, and nothing's changed in 100 years. In a lot of degrees, you go out on great nights and you have a hot dog and a beer, and you talk with friends and you enjoy some of the game. And so I love that. Kind of has always been rooted in me. And that's, I guess, probably where it came from. And some of and they start kind of, I was maybe a little too young to really remember all the players and the stats and get into it. But when you start kind of combing over those results, I mean, you just realize, I mean, kind of how spoiled we were to have AAA baseball in Edmonton and Calgary and Vancouver for how many years, and the guys who were rolling through, and just how cool that was, right? Mm-hmm. So I just want to make sure that wasn't lost on people, as we get, close to a decade out from that, or 2 decades out from that. Sorry. I want to make sure that's not lost on people. They realize, that was here, and it was here for a long time, and really supportive.
And from a business perspective, I'm sure it provides you with a whole bunch of options as well, because the logo and the colors seem to change fairly regularly as well.
Yeah. And that's really cool when you look at it too, because, for the Edmonton Trappers, everyone remembers them, but when you really look at like the 81 season and the old Red Rooster baseball cards and the red and white logos there, and then kind of the back catcher one, which is, I claim it the 84 because I try to base it on the championship year, but that went on for a few years. And then for some reason they went to the black and teal. Well, I know why, because they were the Marlins affiliate, which couldn't be too farther places from each other in North America, but that's okay. And then went with the teal, which was hot in the 90s, thanks to the Grizzlies, the San Jose Sharks, Florida Marlins. So it's cool to really tie that in, and everybody sort of resonates and jumps to a different part of their childhood, right? Everyone remembers, like, I love that 96, 97 championship teams. I want their merch. And I love that teal and black color. And then, some guys who are a bit older love the old 80s look and feel that. And then there's even the, 2000s kind of with a little bit of different E logo and Trappers font writing, so people jump to that one too. So I think it's really cool.
Do you have any favorite logos or favorite designs that you've come across that weren't Trappers related?
Yeah, I really like one that I found I'm making is the old Edmonton or Beverly Drakes. That's from like the early 50s. I really like that one. The Dodgers from the early 1900s, the Edmonton Dodgers. It's not like the LA Dodgers. It's a little bit thicker font. I really like that one. What else? I mean, yeah, I think you can appreciate all of them. It's just sort of what you're into. But those two ones I thought were really cool.
So going back to when you've got this MBA project, and do you remember the moment when you went from, okay, this is an idea, to, okay, maybe we should probably develop this and maybe see if we can sell a little bit of this swag?
Yeah, you kind of, it sort of just resonated when it came up with the name for Ross Flats, and it was honestly the moment when I started going back in the history and just, Googling things and then going to the archives and seeing, stuff. I'm like, holy, like there's just been a lot of championship teams, that have played in Edmonton. And so I thought that was really cool. And kind of tying that all together, it's been the same spot. I said, you know what, let's make it work. And then when orders start coming in, I mean, when you start getting those pings on your phone from an online order, I mean, there's no better feeling on it. And when you see that happening, and then you get an email back from somebody and they're like, thanks, this is so cool. This brought me back to my childhood. Or, I remember this from early days. My dad did. He's going to love this as a Father's Day present. we start getting that kind of feedback, and people they get pretty emotional about it because it's taking them back to a time when they're really happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I got that, I was like, hey, we're kind of onto something. And then really just kept going from there.
How gratifying is that side of it when you do get the responses, or when you did initially get those first few orders and you realize, holy moly, this is actually going to happen. This is real.
Yeah, it's great, because then you realize, there's people who think it's just as cool as you think it is, right? So it's there's a lot of verification in that, and you kind of think, well, maybe people don't really care about this old history, and this is going way back. Like, who's going to remember this? But people are proud of where they're from. They're proud of their city, and they really love their sports history as well. So it's just great to think that you're not crazy, and you're like, is anyone's going to buy a 1919 vintage logo T-shirt? and then they do, because they think it's cool as well. So yeah, it's great.
What was it like from your perspective, seeing and feeling that first shirt come off the press?
Yeah, until I'm big believers, you got to create something, like create that. And then when you actually have the physical product in your hand, then you can kind of work backwards. How am I going to sell it? How am I going to market it? How am I going to put it online? All those kind of things. But it's great to be like, hey, an idea. And now, I mean, you can get these things going. You can start a business. You can get, e-commerce going on a website easily, and get people to help you out with design work and everything. So it's really gratifying when you actually see it on your product. And then, also when I'm around the city and I see somebody wearing randomly, a hat that I made, or a shirt, and a friend of mine points it out, or my wife does, or something, it's a really cool feeling, right?
What's the biggest challenge been through this whole process?
I think really a big challenge is the apparel industry in Canada it's not easy. There's not great margins there. I mean, nobody who's doing something like I'm doing is doing this to make a ton of money. They're doing it because they're passionate about it, and they want to get out there, and it's a nice, they want to kind of share their vision of things with people. But there's not huge money to be made in this, and there's not really a lot of Canadian companies who are making things here. So you kind of got to, balance that out. And how do you still keep it local and keep production here, and design and printing and embroidery and all that? So that probably is sourcing is hard on that end. And just, you start kind of learning, okay, what are the numbers I need to hit? How do I make this, on different size T-shirts and color T-shirts, and how many hats I got to make, and what makes sense, for me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So just figuring that out, it's just really trial and error.
What's next for Ross Flats?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I kind of keep digging and finding new things out there. I mean, there's a ton of sports history in the Edmonton area. I mean, I think I want to stay here. Maybe it scales out to other markets, might be potential, but I still think there's a lot of teams and logos, and we're starting to do like buildings and kind of even like some old ads we've seen recreating apparel based on that. So I think there's still a lot there. You just got to just be looking in the right places.
My final question is, what has this all meant to you, to been able to be a part of something that is so unique and so special to Edmonton?
Yeah, it's kind of my way of, just showing that I'm proud of where I'm from, and trying to give kind of something back, and get people more into, really acknowledging where they're from, the sports, and giving them, maybe taking them back to a place where they remember sort of, really good times, and bringing that to people. So it's cool to be kind of part of like, that kind of local movement that's been going on now for a little while, but kind of being part of that group is great to know that whether it's guys who are bringing restaurants and bars back, or other apparel, or anything else. I mean, bringing stories back, which you guys are doing is, I think, really cool. So I think kind of being part of that is probably the best part that I'm getting out of it.
Absolutely. A fantastic website to go to, rossflats.ca. Go get your swag today. Reed, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Thanks to the gentleman behind Sea of Dead and Ross Flats Apparel for joining us this week. And as mentioned, make sure to head to their websites to get all geared up. We'd also like to give a quick shout out to the makers of our own t-shirts, Oh My Apparel, for all they do. Make sure to head to albertadugoutstories.com if you're interested in representing ADS while you're out and about. Until next time, thanks for listening and for all of your support, no matter the platform, of Alberta Dugout Stories.